What up, though, Detroit? So, you already know the deal. Just giving a shout out to Petty Tupac TV. Like, comment, subscribe. You already know the deal.
Let's start here with what Robert Steele said in the Detroit News article. A prominent Detroit music mogul allegedly is one of the largest heroin dealers in the Midwest and using his rap label to launder drug money, according to sealed federal court records. B&B Records owner Brian Peanut Brown also is responsible for selling heroin laced with fentanyl, the synthetic pain medication fueling the nation's deadliest addiction crisis. According to court records that chronicle a sprawling drug investigation involving Brown's wife, a girlfriend, millions in drug profits, and a mansion with a secret Narnina room. The 47-year-old Warren man has not been charged with a drug crime despite an ongoing years-long investigation that was recently revealed when the government temporarily unsealed a federal search warrant affidavit. The affidavit detained the Detroit News lists probable cause to raid multiple homes that allegedly are part of Brown's empire. The 50-page federal court record contradicts Brown's redemption story crafted after an emerge from a decade-long prison sentence for drug conspiracy in 2010. On social media, Brown portrays himself as a successful hood hero and last month posted a billboard near McNichols and I-75 promoting an upcoming self-help book. Brown allegedly using his rap label to hide money earned through large-scale criminal activity and a modern twist on a Prohibition-era racket, said Carl Taylor, a Michigan State University sociology professor who has studied drugs and gangs. Like he knows something. Was selling alcohol a good cover for Al Capone? Yes, Taylor said, but even when organized crime was at its peak, I'm speaking of the Italian and Sicilians, they knew not to be too flashy. Brown's lawyer Steve Fishman and the U.S. Attorney Office declined comment. Brown remained free Wednesday after a federal judge refused to revoke his bond on a related gun case. The heroin and fentanyl investigation coincides with 57% rise in overdose deaths nationwide in recent years tied to the synthetic opioids. The program is acute in Michigan. In 2015, Ohio led the nation with the highest number of opioid overdose deaths with 2,698 for the second year straight, according to a study from the Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation. Illinois had the sixth highest number of opioid deaths, and Michigan the eighth highest with 1,309. U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agents say they seized at least 1 kilogram of fentanyl while investigating the Brown investigation. Agents say Brown's drug ring is responsible for distributing more than 440 pounds of drugs throughout the U.S. and amassed millions in cash, luxury vehicles, real estate, and expensive jewelry. It is unclear whether the government has enough evidence to file drug charges against Brown, who has remained out of jail after federal agents obtained a search warrant to raid at least 6 homes and 2 banks. Inventories of what, if anything, was seized during the raid are sealed in federal court. It can take up to years to investigate multi-state large-scale drug ring. Who is the infamous Brian Peanut Brown? If you ask the feds or Robert Snell of the Detroit News, they would likely say a formerly convicted drug kingpin who uses a record label to launder millions of dollars and buy luxury homes, cars, and jewelry. As we all know, white media generally only shows one's flaws, but today I'll let you decide what to think. Let's dive into who Peanut Brown is. Let's get some backstory. Peanut grew up on Detroit's southwest side, Illinois and Warren area in the 70s and 80s. You know, made West Hood or by the popular House of Liquor store for you newbies who don't know the whole Detroit yet. Peanut grew up mostly with his grandparents. His father was a well-known hitman, always in and out of prison, and his mother was in and out the streets. So for a more stable environment, it was best him and his sister move in with their grandparents. Peanut claims that he never harbored any resentment for his parents' absence. Brian was the only child for 5 years of his life. So when his sister was born, she garnered most of the attention, and he felt he was lost in the mist, which forced him to want to be accepted and special by others, which carries on with him to this day. Peanut claims that at 5 years old, his father had summoned him from his room. As he entered the living room, there was a man he wanted Peanut to shoot. So he gave him a gun, and this man pleaded for his life. Peanut refused to, though. His father smacked him a few times and told him to go back in the room. Peanut didn't know his father was a hitman until around 15 years of age, when there was a man looking to kill his father with a revolver handgun, and luckily his father was able to wrestle the gun from this man and shoot him dead in the head in broad daylight. This prompted his father to go on a run to Florida. Peanut's uncle eventually introduced him into the drug game by having Peanut sell weed for him when he was busy. In an interview, Peanut recalls trying to roll dope for the infamous YBI crew headed by Bush Jones. In 1987, Peanut went to college. He had a full ride scholarship for basketball to Jackson State and a couple other universities outside of Michigan. But yet he opted to attend a local college, which really frustrated his grandparents. Peanut's grandparents wanted him out of Michigan, especially the Detroit area, because the streets were becoming increasingly deadly and a violent place to be. And his father had amassed so much beef from killing a lot of people. Brian's grandparents were giving him allowance, $10 a day, which was worth like $26 and some change a day. His grandparents became frustrated when he refused to leave Michigan, so they cut his allowance in half. Peanut was determined to make up the pay difference. So he went to the drug dealers in the neighborhood and got an 8-ball for about $150. For you that don't know, an 8-ball weighs 3.5 grams, which dealers would break down and make anywhere between $350 to $500. Peanut had no clue at the time of this either, so he would only break down enough to make a $10 profit, which means he had way more quantity than anybody. This enabled him to blow up on the drug scene. Before you knew it, he had a drug house doing no less than $25,000 a day. Fast forward to 92, Peanut had a true connect that went bad. People were trying to kill his connect. Around the same time, he loaned his girlfriend's mother money, and she unknowingly went and did a deal with the undercover FBI agents. The feds grabbed Peanut out of his bed with his girlfriend, dragged him to the station, questioned him, and then let him go. His plug asked Peanut to call the feds and roll on another man. Peanut kept it solid and said no. His plug eventually ends up getting killed a short time later, and Peanut was the last known person to be seen with him alive. Now, he was a suspect for homicide. His girlfriend's mother was heavily involved in Peanut's mix and acquired a lot of information about his operations, which she ended up giving to the FBI. With the information, the FBI created their own FD-302. Okay, let's take a moment. Because I like to inform people on what they might not know. The average person don't know what an FD-302 is. Just like I did earlier with the currency inflation and the 8-ball. An FD-302 is a form that is used by FBI agents to report or summarize the interviews that they conduct and contains information from the notes taken during the interview by the non-primary agent. It consists of information taken from the subject rather than details about the subject themselves. It basically sums up explanation or information that is long and extracts the juicy details. Now, it is unclear whether Peanut spoke with the officers in detail, his girlfriend's mother, or both, but he did refuse to sign the 302, which would have confirmed information given. So no, he didn't tell from what I can read from his indictment online. Peanut eventually went on the run to San Antonio, Texas. His mother had some old friends there. He left the state with only $15,000 to his name. He was owed millions of dollars in his hometown, but a lot of people refused to pay when they were notified that he was on the run. It was like, why pay? You know how grimy the streets is. Peanut was an outlaw living in paranoia for almost 5 years before he was caught. While on the run, media started plastering his face on FBI Most Wanted TV, posts, etc. Everywhere you could find anything out about crime, he was right up there with bin Laden. With his $15,000 in cash, he went and bought a Ford Bronco and got an apartment and paid his rent 6 months in advance. When he needed money, he would insurance job his truck. He eventually started sneaking in and out of Detroit. This would later become a fatal mistake. His stepbrother Lionel needed some work and called Peanut. He told Lionel to meet him in Ohio with a stash car to exchange cars. They met. Peanut but pulled up in a Rolls Royce. Peanut knows he can't be in a car like that because, it's a Rolls Royce. So he sends his brother back to get another car. He never came back. He was killed because the people who knew he was going to go do a major pickup thought he actually came back with the drugs and killed him and his wife. After finding out this, Peanut goes back to Detroit, and he was determined to find out who was responsible so he could employ revenge. Peanut ended up at an uncle's house one day and set up for a female to come to Detroit. He fell asleep at his uncle's and ended up waking up realizing he had to rush and meet her. He was driving a Firebird, the one with the lights that pop up. It was late and he was in a rush, so he didn't realize that he only had the fog lights on and not the actual lights. With that being said, he was pulled over by a cop. The police pulled him out the vehicle. Peanut tried to run, but they grabbed him and searched him and found a loaded gun on his possession. They ran his name, and that concluded his freedom at that moment. He ended up going to the county jail for 13 months. During most of his jail stint, he didn't know what he was being charged with. They canceled around 10 of his court days. Peanut had a friend by the name of Travion Davenport who came to visit him. Travion had a friend who was in law school by the name of Sharice Glenn. During a visit, Travion asked Peanut what was he in for. He responded, "I don't know." Travion rightly thought he was lying and didn't want to admit what he was locked up for. That's a proper assumption 99% of the time. Trust me, I've been there. She suggested Peanut talk to her friend, who ended up telling Peanut his rights are being violated. Sharice talked to Peanut's lawyer. This ended up causing his lawyer to file a motion for a speedy trial and then a motion for dismissal. He ended up going to court, standing before the judge. Peanut was told that his case was the worst miscarriage of justice ever seen by the judge. The judge told Peanut he was free to go home. I know you're wondering where did being a record exec come into play? Peanut had a friend by the name of Sean McKinney, aka Click. Click was managing Detroit rapper Trick Trick at the time, right? A short time later, Click ended up getting killed. Out of love for Click and Trick Trick, he ended up continuing to help Trick grow and keep Click's name alive so his family could eat off Click's legacy. This ended up causing confusion with the family, so he fell back. Peanut ended up starting a label called For Sure Records. Peanut ended up taking Uncle Trick on his first national tour between 97 and 98. Through the tour, Peanut ended up meeting a guy named Dave Rossessi in California who was working with Interscope. Through Dave, Peanut met a man named Sean Bolden, who he clicked up with tough. Sean left Interscope and began working closely with Peanut. You know, Peanut was taking care of him if he left a major record label to work with him. My baby was getting that money. On tour, while promoting Peanut, he had a run-in with Florida artist Trick Daddy Dollars, but we would save that for another video. I'm laughing over here thinking about it. Just as things were looking up, Peanut was re-indicted on the 7 Mile Dogs indictment, which I would do a separate video about that too. The Simpson brothers, who had already been in jail over 5 years, were called to testify against Brown. Peanut was sentenced to 188 months because of 2 enhancements on his sentence, but he ended up getting around 120 months, doing only about 9.5 years. When he came home, he started B&B Records when he met Charlie Baltimore, a rapper who I have no clue where the hell she is right now. B&B stands for 2 things: breaking major barriers and Bryant Maurice Brown. A friend named Tino out in New York linked with Charlie Baltimore, and he hooked her up with Peanut, who at the time was just living life. He pleaded for Peanut to help Charlie, and once again, from having a big heart, he helps her after hearing her story and starts B&B, even though he knew Tino was just trying to smash. Boy, that's a good one. He built a studio in one of his houses in 40 days just for Charlie Baltimore. Not long after, things went left between the two. Charlie was mad at Peanut after his second wife had beat her up real bad. We're going to call Peanut wife Mayweather. She became spiteful and jumped on Cash Doll's bandwagon, who was going against him at the time. Charlie wrote a statement claiming Peanut beat her up. Allegedly, she did that so Peanut's bond could be revoked. He was under another indictment at this time. Cash Doll and her boyfriend at the time, Peanut knew from prison, had wrote a 50-page statement saying that Peanut had guns and drugs in various houses he owned. Yeah, Cash Doll off the BMF show told on that man, who gave her money, a boob job, cars, promotion, etc. He took her from a stripper to a C-list rapper. Before I go on, I have to add this. Between 92 and 96, Peanut got a 3-picture movie deal out in California under his fake name, which was Mike. I think it was like Michael J. Watts. He ended up running into a random kid that was really cool and hard working. Brian asked him why did he want to be in film and music. The kid replied he just needed extra money to pay for college. Peanut asked the kid what his tuition was. Peanut gives the kid the money for all 4 years of college, no questions asked. Man, I wish I had a friend like that. The reason he said for this was since he was on the run and likely would die, go to prison, he wouldn't be able to help the kid anymore, so he just wanted to cover his school costs at least. Now let's go back to the indictment involving Cash Doll. Peanut had ended up getting hit with the constructive possession of felony firearm for a gun found in a raid of his second wife's house. Let's take a moment for the court time to explain what constructive possession is. Constructive possession under Michigan law occurs when a person is near a firearm. You hear me? When a person is near a firearm and there's indication of his or her control of the firearm, either directly or through another person. Thus, a person must have both knowledge of an item as well as reasonable access to it. Between that, before they can be found to have possessed it. I know he thinks a lot. He had the money for legendary, I'm talking about super legendary lawyer named Steve Fishman. Fishman is the guy you go to for great courthouse relationships and to leverage those relationships. Like, this man is bigger than David Cripps and Gabby Silver, and they pretty big. He is in a league of his own. He's in the oldest, the Cole Peppers, Jeremy Brands. Steve Fishman got Peanut out on bond, which was damn near impossible with his track record. Peanut ends up going back to Cali for business and runs into a man he didn't recognize. This man approached him with the earpiece in and the suit on, looking real serious. He thought he was like a politician or some type of secret service. The man asked, what was Peanut's name? And he replied, Peanut. Dude said, nah. What else do you go by? He said, Mr. BMB. Nope. Peanut finally told this man his old alias, which was the name Mike, right? The man said, yeah, that's you. This serious professional man said, I'm the kid you gave the money to for college. Peanut didn't remember, but the kid thanked him and took his number down after Peanut explained he might be going to prison. His court date comes and he is going for sentencing. The judge starts to say so much great stuff about him during the hearing, he thought he was on the wrong docket. He was facing 31 to 51 months in prison. The judge went on to explain to Peanut that she didn't understand how this case was in front of her when he didn't even own the house nor was there, but she had the ability to sentence him upward or downward. These called upward or downward departures. She chose to go with the downward departure, which is a year and a day, which equal to be only around 6 months because, the time served for house arrest, jail time between, the court days. When Peanut goes home and is on his way to dinner, he gets a strange call from a number, and the man on the other line said, I heard you got a favor. Now, he kind of recognized this distinct voice. By the way, this is Senator such and such, the man said. I've been wanting to repay you for paying for my college. What a trip. That's karma, right? Peanut ended up linking up with Icewear Vezo, who at the time was in a bad deal with some police officers, management, record label, or something like that. Peanut took a liking to him and bought him out of his contract and didn't even make him sign first. He gave Vezo some pocket money too. When Vezo got out his deal, he ghosted Peanut and never paid him back, even after saying he would in multiple brushings of the shoulders or in passing or whenever they seen each other. He didn't take it bad though. Vez still living and he still speaks highly of him. Did you hear what I said? Vez is still living. Peanut also signed these kids, Ayo and Tayo. Y'all remember that song, Mike Rolly, none of dance? Those kids, yeah, he signed those guys. That went wrong also too, because they had a bad manager, and he expressed it was no hard feelings because it was kids, and their manager was just on some crazy stuff or whatever, and he ended up getting fired when those kids went and signed with Jazzy Faye and had that hit. I haven't heard of him since, but he responsible for a lot of talent out of here, if y'all don't know. He also expresses no hard feelings towards Cash Doll, even though over $6 million was seized, which he wasn't tripping about, but he was mad about all the valuable possessions they took from his wife. He say, man, we hustlers, we get ours back, but when you started bothering my people stuff, that hit a little different. And a lot of people was calling them. And remember, tricking them, they don't own and managed and sold and whatever, closed and opened so many clubs. They know all the bouncers. They employ all the bouncers at one point in time. So all the major bouncers that be everywhere at the big events, they was calling them like, Cash out here, what you want me to do? Peanut say nothing, just make sure she get home. Man, a real money getter. I can really say from this story, dude thinks and don't go off his emotions, and he understands people's situations. You know what I'm saying? He understands civilians gonna do what civilians do. Tell me what y'all think about that, and what Icewear Vezo did. And trust me, I'm going to do more on him. There's more great stuff that I got to put out there. But I want to tell y'all both sides of the story because like 50 Cent said, the BMF series couldn't have just been a movie because it wouldn't allow enough time for you to get backstory and actually show some sympathy and empathy by knowing what made these kids this way. If you just throw them out there, some drug dealers, just ruthless and shootouts, you're not going to give them much room for compassion and understanding. That's what the news need to start doing. Peace and blessings be upon all y'all. Tell Brian Peanut Brown, holla at me. I need to interview my baby. Reached out to Trick. He never responded when I asked, but it is what it is. Peace and blessings be upon y'all. Big old 5 McGraw Ave season. New season coming soon too. Peace.